Hey, I'm so glad you tuned in because we're going to be doing a message with my sons, Ryan and Josh, all about how to experience a firsthand faith and not settle for secondhand religion because so many in their generation are leaving faith behind. And it leaves a tremendous void in their life. And Ryan and Josh speak very openly about what they went through, their doubts and their questions, but how they came to a strong faith in Christ. I think you're going to love this interview. And we also show Ryan's award-winning short film, Empty.
You're watching a presentation of Kerry Shook Ministries.
Hi, I'm Pastor Kerry Shook, and this is my wife, Chris.
And we are so glad that you chose to join us today because we're going to be talking about a really important message.
In fact, if you know a teenager or a young adult who's going the wrong direction and you really want to reach them, this is the show for you. There's so many kids growing up in this next generation that don't know what it means to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And the whole goal of our ministry is to help this next generation really understand how to be filled with the love of Christ and not man's creation of religion, and then not all those other things that they could find that don't really fill the emptiness in their life, but really to understand what it means to have a relationship with Jesus Christ, because that's when their lives will be changed.
This is something that Kerry and I are so passionate about. We have 4 children, but whether you have kids or not, you have to see that where our world heads in this next generation all depends on what they believe in and what their values are. I will never forget the day that our oldest son, Ryan, when he was 17 years old, walked into the kitchen and said to Kerry and I, "Mom, Dad, I'm so frustrated, I'm so confused," because many of his friends, he went on to tell us, had gotten involved in some things recently in high school that they probably shouldn't have, doing some things on the weekends that they never had before, but they were just testing the waters and were liking it and headed that direction. And he would try to share with his friends the difference that Christ could make in their lives, but he felt like his words were falling on deaf ears. And so he decided he really wanted to make a difference, and what can I do to reach this generation? And he felt like media, film, video was the best way to do that. And so he wrote and produced a short film that he aimed directly at the hearts of those teenagers, those kids in his generation, trying to grab a hold of them and tell them there's more. There's more than what you think there is out there. There's a whole world in Christ waiting for you. And as this film was released and began to be shown around the country, it just took off. And I think it really resonated with adults as well as teenagers because it's a universal theme, a universal heartbeat, a need that we all have to know that the emptiness that every one of us experiences can be filled. Most of the things we look for will never fill it, but there is a way to fill that emptiness.
So a while back, I interviewed my 2 oldest sons, Ryan and Josh, and it was at a church service, and God really used it powerfully. And then we showed the short film, and now it's an award-winning short film that's changing thousands of young lives all over the world, and it's called Empty. Just watch. Hey, we got a really special message for you today because I've asked my 2 oldest sons, my 18-year-old son Ryan and my 16-year-old son Josh, to help me out with the message because we're talking about teenagers and this new generation that's growing up and facing so many things that peer pressure to go the wrong direction and have to go completely against the flow. And I just want to know, Josh, what are some of the things that your generation is really looking for?
I think my generation is looking for purpose. And I mean, like, everyone looks for a purpose, but a lot of us are trying to feel fulfilled. A purpose is fulfillment, and so we'd go from one thing to the next. It could be whatever. It could be drugs, or it could be sex. It could be a TV. It could be whatever, friends. We're always looking for some place that we feel accepted in, and I think that we're one of the most, if not, we're probably the most connected generation ever. And I think that we're always we're always, open with each other. We're always talking to each other. It could be a text, AIM, MySpace, whatever. We're calling each other. We're always hanging out in groups. And we're just so open with each other. And I think that's good that we have that and we can share that and we can share our weaknesses and we can share that, hey, we're all looking for fulfillment together. But it's bad in the sense that all the faults we have become known. And since everyone's like, oh, well, he's dealing with that and he does that, well, then I guess it's okay. And it just becomes commonplace. And that can really, morally, that hurts, our generation, lowers the standard. We're together as a generation, we're all just searching for that fulfillment and purpose. Yeah. And a lot of times we do it in the wrong place. We're, searching for it. Okay, maybe we'll find it in this or that or whatever. And we never truly feel fulfilled about it. And even the kids in church who might have grown up in it, like me and Ryan, we feel, we feel that, we'll get that spiritual dryness or whatever, or just this doesn't seem real, And so it's like we're not, instead of that passionate, relationship with God, it becomes the checklist, it becomes going to church, it becomes doing, all the good Christian stuff, and it just gets, boring and dry, and it's not purposeful. And so then those kids get caught up in that struggle and that search with everyone else, going from thing to thing, trying to find that place of fulfillment. Yep. And so I just really think that's what my generation's dealing with.
Yeah, and I have to say, Josh, that really what your generation is dealing with in some ways is what everybody deals with. We're all looking for purpose, and we all look in the wrong places, and there's only one place to really find that purpose. But your generation faces some things that are more difficult, I think, than any generation that's come along. And I know, Ryan, you had such a passion to do something that would make a difference in your generation, that would really speak to them, that you came up with this idea of doing a short film. And it's just awesome. Yeah. Tell me how you came up with that idea.
Well, I kind of got the idea for this short film, Empty, a couple months ago. When Josh and I were kind of in this, like Josh was saying, in this dry spell kind of place. And a lot of our friends were in the same kind of position. Yeah. We'd been going to church. We got stuck in the rut of just repetitive, going through the motions.
And we've been, like, all these friends, we've grown up in church together. It's a big group of friends. We're over at each other's houses, every single weekend, or, in the summer, literally weeks at a time without seeing our parents or anything. Yeah. And just being we love these guys, and for the first time we were really challenged, I think, with our faith, and with it's not so much our faith, but just that spiritual dryness, in the sense that, hey, this whole church thing, isn't working, is almost how we felt.
Yeah. So you came up with this short film, Ryan, and to speak to your generation, and tell me more about it. The film, what's it about?
The film is about how we all experience that emptiness. We all have this emptiness inside of us. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter your background, your lifestyle. Everyone has an emptiness that needs to be filled. And everyone tries different things to fill that emptiness. Yeah. It can be anything from television to the internet to things like pornography or drugs and alcohol. But regardless, all these things in the world we try to use to fill our emptiness, they only leave us empty. And it's universally experienced, and it's
totally.
And everyone knows they have this emptiness, and everyone knows it's there. But the question that everyone asks is, how do you fill it? How do you really have fulfillment in your life? And as I started asking myself that, and I began to realize that I had just been kind of going to church and just kind of sitting in the chair every Sunday and just kind of taking it in, but never really searching for that fulfillment that I know that I needed. It's kind of just like I kept looking for these different highs, and Josh and I and our friends, we just kept looking for different things to fill our emptiness. But we realized that after trying those things, it doesn't matter what they were, they just left us empty, and we were just left back in the same dry spot. So so during this last summer, I just kind of thought, I just want to remind all my friends and my generation and everyone that I know that there is a hope beyond the next high, beyond the next thing we use to try to fill our emptiness, but we know it's just going to leave us, in the back of our minds, we know it's just going to leave us empty the next, after it's over. And so I just thought, I just want to remind everyone that there is a hope, And that's really the inspiration that this film comes from.
Yeah, and it's so powerful, too, because I love the way you did it. You didn't come at it in a judgmental way, saying, don't do this and don't do that, and that's the way a lot of churches preach, you know, don't do all these things. But the way you did it is you showed the real life in Jesus Christ and how fulfilling that life in Jesus Christ is when we surrender to Him. And every one of us experienced this emptiness. When I watched it, I know it's for your generation, but it grabbed me. I could totally relate to it. And it's the process that I have to come to every day, total surrender. I try to live life on my own, and then it doesn't work, and I'm empty, and then I totally surrendered to Christ, and He fills me up. And it's this process over and over again, and the way you beautifully pictured it, it was just powerful to me. And I know, Josh, you did the music for it and put the music together, and you guys put this together, so you're very fortunate because today you get to see the premiere of the short film, Empty. Just watch.
One day I was driving in my car when the engine slowly dies out, and as it dawns on me that I'm either going to have to get out and start pushing the car, or begin searching for a gas station in the summer heat, I start asking myself how I reached this point. How did I go so long without ever filling up? Was I really so oblivious that I missed the gas gauge drop below E? I am always waiting until the last second to fill my tank. I think that's what happens a lot of times in our lives. We go so long running on fumes and become so used to going on empty that we begin to believe this is how our lives are supposed to be. But then there always comes this point where even the fumes we've been running on finally get burned up. There's nothing left, and we find ourselves outside in the heat, realizing we're far from where we wanted to be. Do you ever feel empty? Do you ever have one of those days where you wake up and there's nothing there? No emotions, no motivations, no aspirations, absolutely nothing. You are running below E. Most of the time, my life feels like this room. Totally void of any purpose, cold and incomplete. But even though everything I see and everything around me seems pointless, I know there's more. I know I was designed with an incredible purpose that goes so far beyond the incomplete reality that I exist in. I've heard it been called a full life, or a deeper experience. One where I'm passionately living out my life to the full extent I was created to. As I started thinking about it, I've begun to realize I'm not the only one who gets this deep desire for more. I sense it in the lives of people all around me. I see it in some of the insane things that people do for attention. I hear it in the voice of my generation constantly. It's this nagging, this screaming inside of everyone I know who is dying for more. This whole conflict between the reality that we exist in and the completeness we all know we are meant for has been controlling my life. So lately, I've been trying to figure out what it is, why it's there, and who will fix it. I've done and tried a million different things to fill my emptiness. I've used pride to try to downplay it. I've tried friends to avoid it. I've used lust to try to mask it. I've used theft to try to forget it. I've tried selfishness to control it. I've used TV and the internet to try to tune it out. I've used lies to try to cover it up. I've used sex to try to fill it. I've tried money, cheating, alcohol and drugs, bitterness, success, and all those things make me feel full for a while. But after the party is over, after the porno ends, after the high is gone, after my friends leave, or right after I finally get what I thought I wanted, I'm left with nothing. I'm left alone, empty, and dry. So where do I go from here? How do I get outside of the walls of my emptiness? I mean, I know I can't fill it on my own. If I could, I wouldn't be waking up every morning empty and going through life incomplete. Could it be that this space can only be filled by one thing? As I was looking for answers, I picked up my Bible and turned to a story about the woman at the well. The woman in this story has a bad reputation in her town. She's been with 5 men, and the man she's with now isn't her husband. She's a hurting girl who's been trying so hard to fill the emptiness on her own. Jesus approaches her at the well, and instead of asking why she's so evil, or how she sunk so low, he simply asks for a drink of water. Ashamed and caught off guard, the girl asks, "Why are you asking me for a drink of water?" And what Jesus says next is the reason I'm a Christian. He tells her, "If you knew the generosity of God and who I am, you'd be asking me for a drink, and I would give you my fresh, living water." Maybe the missing piece that's designed to fill our emptiness is the same thing that girl was missing years ago. His living water. It's something that can't be totally understood or completely defined in words. It's the love of God, your Creator and Savior, who has not only made you perfect in Him, but loves you perfectly regardless of what you become. Maybe you're a Christian, maybe you're not, I don't know. But I do know that everyone has either been in this room or is still trapped inside of it. Like me, you're probably thinking, that sounds great, but I've never had it work for me. I've never experienced that full life even though I am a Christian. And you know what? I'd say you're right. I've never really experienced it either. I've never had it work for me either. But maybe it's never worked for us because we've been doing it all wrong. Have you ever had a huge test you didn't know about until the day before? So that night you're cramming in all this information so you can make a decent grade the next day. But you get to class the next morning, the teacher puts the paper down on your desk, you begin working, and you immediately realize that all the stuff you'd been studying the night before isn't even close to what the test is actually over. That's exactly how I feel about my spiritual life. Like Christianity is a class I can study for. Like if I read my Bible 15 minutes a day, pray before every meal, and go to church every Sunday, then I'm a good Christian. Sometimes I get stuck studying in this class of Christianity for months, trying to live by the rules, say the right words, go to the right Bible studies, you know, do the whole good Christian kid thing. But this just leaves me feeling even more empty. I find myself so desperate that I start crying out to God. Lord, where are you? Don't you love me? But then every once in a while, I get a small taste of what real Christianity is. Maybe it comes in a message at church that really grabs my heart and wakes me up. Sometimes it's just being outside in creation, taking in all the beauty around me. But I most often see what true fulfillment is in the lives of others. When you see someone who truly loves God and loves to serve Him, you can just see in their face how full they are. They're overflowing with that living water. And that's when I remember, Christianity isn't a class, it's a relationship. It isn't about following all the right rules or being a good Christian. It's about knowing your Savior, the God who loves you more than you can ever understand in a real and personal way. Right now, we're all looking at shattered reflections of who we're truly meant to be. But the most amazing part of this whole struggle is that every day Christ is there offering us His living water. He wants us to live in that fulfilled zone where we're not dragged down by the things we use to try to fill our emptiness. He asks us simply to throw Him our sin and our shame because He knows we can't deal with it on our own. But He can. And finally, after we've admitted to ourselves we can't live a life of meaning without Him, cried out to God for rescue, and surrendered all we are over to Him, we can finally be free to live that life of purpose and fulfillment we know we were all meant for. Now all that's left to do is either let the tension in our lives build and allow the empty gap in our souls to widen, or allow God to break through that wall we know shouldn't be there and let His wave of fulfillment come rushing in. In John 10:10, Jesus says, "My purpose is to give life and life in all its fullness." God desires deeply for us to live our life out to the full extent He created us to. He is pushing against the other side of that wall, wanting to fill you, just waiting for you to take the last step and come to Him. And when you finally do, it feels so good to be released from your mistakes, to be released from your shame, to be free from your guilt. No matter who you are, how far you've fallen, or how empty you've been, Christ washes it all away. You know, I wish I could say from now on we will never go empty again. But we are still human. We will make more mistakes. Our tanks won't always be full. But maybe that's the beauty of it. We are constantly going to have to keep coming back to our Creator when we go empty again, so that we may realize we depend on Him for everything that holds meaning in life. Maybe that's what being full is all about. Depending on God instead of trying to live on our own.
Ryan and Josh, I'm so proud of you guys. I mean, that just grabs me. It doesn't matter what generation you're in. I think we're all in the same boat. And I loved how you didn't just say, well, once you become a Christian, then everything's perfect. You talked about this process of the Christian life, of that filling.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I'm in the same position everyone else here is. Everyone who watches this, I'm just looking for the answers. I just want to know how I can become fulfilled and live a full life. And I realized that after kind of looking at it, I realized that maybe the reason that we're on earth, one of the main reasons, is so that we can learn to depend on God and rely on Him for everything. And maybe that's really one of the biggest points of our whole life.
I know, Ryan, it's your desire to get this into the hands of every teenager that you can, because I know it'll be life-changing for them. So if you know a teenager that can really use this right now and that God could use it in their life, call us right now, because we want to get this out to every teenager that we can, because I think it can really impact this generation. I know you really enjoyed the short film Empty, because Chris, when we first saw it, I mean, it just really grabbed our hearts. But yet it's for specifically young people. And I know every one of us have someone in our lives, a young person who's a friend or a family member who really needs their life to be changed by Jesus Christ. And that's what this thing is all about. And our goal is to be generation changers.
That's right. And I don't know about you, I know we're willing to do whatever it takes to change the next generation. And so I encourage you to look around you. It's easy to get caught up in our own little bubble, even our own little family, but to look at the neighbors, the kids on your street, and lives that can be changed by your intervention.
I really believe that God is raising up this next generation, and He's going to bring about an amazing revival. But He really wants to use every one of us to be generation changers. And that's what it's all about when it's all said and done.
We want to invite you to be a generation changer alongside us, because together we can impact this next generation if we can just get the Word into their hands, into their hearts, and into their minds. And we have a great way for you to do that.
Just a very practical way. We want you to call us right now to sign up and join us to be generation changers. And what we want to do is to get you 5 DVDs of the award-winning short film Empty. And we want you to keep one for yourself, but then you've got to commit to give away the other 4 to young people or someone that can really use it so that they can learn what it means to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And Chris, we've been giving these DVDs away like crazy for the last few years, and we've seen so many young people's lives completely changed.
That's right. You can get one of these DVDs into the hands of a student that you know, maybe somebody on your street, a neighbor, a child, a grandchild, a nephew, a niece, a cousin, but somehow getting it into an individual's hand. But also, you can use it to reach whole groups. We've had people give a copy to their local student ministry pastors at local churches, into the Boy Scout leaders' hands, into the hands of leaders of ball clubs and athletics for students. Any place there's a venue where kids can be reached. It's a great way, it's an easy give. Who wouldn't take a DVD that they can use to show to kids? And in it, it grabs these kids' hearts as they learn that there's more to this life, more for them than just taking up space, more for them than trying to find something to fill that emptiness that we all feel. Instead, there's the fullness of life in Christ, and it's communicated in a way that just hits home in these students' lives.
So call us right now and sign up with us to be a generation changer, and we'll get these 5 DVDs of the award-winning short film Empty to you. Keep one for yourself, then commit to give away 4, and we're going to get the message out. And we're going to be together generation changers for Jesus Christ.
Few things are more gratifying than sharing life and truth with others. That's why we want to equip you to be a blessing to those you care about. Can you share a gift of support for the outreaches of Kerry Shook Ministries this month? If so, Kerry and Chris want to send today's message on DVD as their way of saying thank you for your gift of any size. If you can share a gift of $30 or more to help keep this kind of teaching coming to you and others, we want to say thanks by sending you a total of 5 copies of today's message on DVD. That way, you'll have 1 to keep and 4 to share with others. We call that being a generation changer. To share a gift and request your resources, call or click right now. And remember, with a gift of $30 or more, you'll receive 5 copies of today's message, so you can join us in being a generation changer.
I hope you enjoyed the message today, and it's always a message of hope in Jesus Christ, our only hope. And if you've never received Him, you can do that right now, right where you are. You can just say, Jesus Christ, come into my life. Forgive me of my sins, and I want you to be the Lord of my life from now on. And if you pray that prayer, He'll never leave you. He'll never forsake you. And you'll be starting the great adventure, the journey of living for Jesus.
Thank you for joining us today and being a part of the Kerry Shook Ministries.